Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 12 Response Show. I'm Sarah Grinelli. This week, our guest is Danielle Schrage, a postal inspector from the United States Postal Inspection Services. Welcome to the show. So tell me, if people don't know what USPIS is, give us an idea of what you guys do, because we know you're the law enforcement branch of the Postal Service.
Yeah, that's right. So we are a agency. We work specifically under the direction of the Postal Service. So we are their crime prevention, security, and law enforcement arm. We are sworn federal agents. We carry firearms. We serve subpoenas. We make arrests. We bring our cases mainly federally to the U.S. Attorney's Office, but we also do work on the state level, and we work with all our state, local, and federal partners in order to investigate crimes that either have gone through the mail or have mail nexus. And so most people don't know we exist. We are also one of the oldest, if not the oldest, federal law enforcement agency in the country. We actually predate the country. We just celebrated our 250th anniversary last year. So,
Wow. And so, how big of a problem is mail crime? I'm sure you guys have a lot going on, even though it feels like, people might not see what you guys are doing all the time.
yeah, so I mean, like I said, we have predated the country, and ever since then, whenever forever there have been people, unfortunately, who would like to take the mail or steal it, and we've been on the case for about 250 years. So it's something that we're well versed in investigating, and we still do to this day. Unfortunately, mail theft does occur. Identity theft through the mail does occur. And so when those incidents happen, we, the Postal Inspection Service, we will take up those cases and investigate them and hopefully bring the suspects to justice.
How big of a problem is it locally and nationally?
Yeah, so I mean, again, mail theft can happen specifically anywhere, and it can happen in rural areas, it can happen in urban areas, it happens in affluent and less affluent areas. A lot of times, specifically with mail theft, they are crimes of opportunity. So that's why a lot of times you'll see people like myself or my colleagues getting out here and talking to consumers about tips or ways that they can minimize their exposure and prevent becoming victims of mail theft. So that is one of the things that we do. But again, I would warn any would-be crook out there that obviously we exist and that we have a very high conviction rate. So if you do want to try to steal mail, we will, investigate you and bring you to justice.
And are there certain types of mail or delivery fraud or packages that are stolen that you're seeing more than others? Is there certain targets that these bad actors are going after?
Yeah, so obviously, as we were going into the holiday season, we would be warning people about receiving, packages or anything that they were expecting over the holidays to keep an eye out on those. Obviously, porch pirates, as we refer to them, they're out there as well, and they may want to steal your parcel, so to keep your eye out for that sort of thing. Another thing that, you may have seen in the news and things are crooks are also targeting your checks. So if you are going to mail a check, we ask that you be cognizant that that check is valuable to thieves. Either they steal it to try to wash the check, in which it's a chemical solution and they can change the payee and deposit it into an account or an account they hold, or they can also make synthetic copies of your checks. So those are the two main things that lately we would want consumers to be aware of and kind of keep an eye out for.
Will you talk about how easy it is for one of these criminals to wash a check with this chemical solution? I know we've talked about this in the past. It's fairly simple once they get a hold of a check, what they can do with it.
Right. Yeah, so again, what few things that people can do to prevent this. One, if you need to mail a check, the safest and securest way to do so is to walk your check into a post office and mail it inside. If don't try to leave it in a blue collection box if you don't have to. We really want people not to be afraid of mailing, but obviously be aware that you may be mailing something that a crook is intended to steal. And so, how do you minimize those ways that they could get it? The first thing is obviously, again, the most direct way is to put it directly into the mail stream inside a post office. Another thing that you can do is try to use, I know people have talked about certain ballpoint inks and things like that. I never want to hang my hat on any one tip, but using a pen, a very inky pen that would be harder to wash, could be also a way that you can prevent this crime. Um, And also, simply just checking on your bank account statements and monitoring if your checks are in fact making it to their recipients, if they are being deposited by the correct parties, just the way you would check on anything else. We ask people, be cognizant of where that check is. If it isn't deposited in the time that you think it needs to be, call your banking institution, call the person that you were sending the check to, just to make sure it made it where it needed to go.
Hmm. And say someone has their check stolen from the mail. How does your agency get involved to investigate? And how long can one of these investigations really last?
Right. So if people realize that their check had been taken out of the mail, the first thing that we would ask them to do is file a victim complaint with us. They can do that several ways. The first way is by going online and accessing our website, and that is www.uspis.gov/report. They can go right there and they can report any sort of mail theft. They can also call us. We have a number. It's 1-877-876-2455, and they can make a report via telephone. But that information is critical for us because if we, the Postal Inspection Service, if we get enough complaints and we're able to, figure out the common point of where these things were taken, it helps us to initiate investigations. It helps us to decipher, where we should be focusing resources and efforts in order to catch these types of crooks.
Mm. And what type of other trends are you seeing right now?
Yeah, so again, I think one of the things people don't realize is when they receive a text message from the Postal Service saying that their package cannot be delivered. We were out, telling people that the post office will not text you about your package not being able to be delivered unless you're something you've initiated early on with a particular mailing. They aren't just going to randomly text you. So we want people to be aware that smishing does happen. That's when obviously a text message you could get, they want you to click on a link, they'll ask for personal identifying information, and then crooks are able to steal that. Another thing that we've been seeing, and I think in the news, is the brushing scams. This is when you may receive a parcel through the mail that you didn't recall ordering. It has your name on it, you open it up, and it can be trinkets from various places. And a lot of times these brushing scams also have a QR code inside where the sender will want you to scan the QR code and fill out some information. We're advising people not to scan those QR codes. Again, like the smishing scheme, they will redirect you to another place. They'll ask you for personal identifying information, and they can usually use that in a nefarious way. But again, with the brushing scams, if you receive something you did not order, it has your name, you open it, you're allowed to keep that. There's nothing you need to return. And we've gotten a lot of calls from confused customers, obviously, about that. Now, whether or not you want to keep whatever item it is, that's up to you, but you do not have to return it.
I've been seeing jewelry being sent in the mail and people opening what looks like a wedding band. And they're like, do I get to
Wow.
keep this or not? But I guess they can. All right, we're going to head to a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about counterfeit postage. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. So, as we talked about when we left off, we're going to talk about counterfeit postage. Danielle, what can you tell me about what this means?
Yeah, so a lot of consumers don't realize that many of the times when they're looking for a good deal online, they may go to either e-commerce sites or other places online looking for counterfeit postage. I know times can be tight and people look for a deal. I'm here to tell you that you do not want to buy any postage online, that especially postage that is being advertised at a steep discount. A lot of times these postage lots are on discount for up to 20, sometimes 50% off. They are almost always counterfeit, either if they are forever stamps or other kinds. And so we really advise consumers that they should only be purchasing their U.S. postage stamps from the post office directly or from an affiliated retailer. Like some big box stores, you can go ahead and get a very, very slight discount in postage. Nothing like the 20 or the 50% off that you were seeing on these online sales.
So, how do these criminals typically use this counterfeit postage? Are they making money off of this? What's their end goal here?
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people are making a lot of money. A lot of these are originating overseas and they're ending up here in America. Again, these counterfeit stamps, people, will buy them thousands of dollars at a time, believing that if they purchase them once, they'll never need to buy a stamp again. And although that sounds great, I really warn consumers if it seems too good to be true, it usually is. So we just want to caution people that almost always, whatever postage you're buying online with such a steep discount will, in fact, be counterfeit. And you will be using counterfeit postage for the near future if you use that.
And so what happens if I decide to, I see a good discount, I buy some postage stamps that are on the cheap, and I send out some mail? Will that mail get to its recipient? Will it be stopped? What's the process?
More than likely, it will be caught in our processing and it can be destroyed. So you run the risk, right? If you buy these stamps, you don't know if they're legitimate, you decide to take a risk and put it on something that's important. There's a good chance that that will not end up going to its intended recipient. So we really advise people, do not buy these stamps. Again, I think sometimes people see them on particular e-commerce sites, which gives them, they believe, some legitimacy. That isn't the case. And even the ones I can tell you, even if you are the lucky few who can buy actual postage that isn't counterfeit, it was more than likely purchased with a stolen credit card or some other fraudulent means. So again, really, if it is too good of a deal, do not believe it. It is, and just buy your postage at the post office,
Hmm.
and save yourself a headache later.
So you're saying that even if you happen to be the lucky one to get some real postage off of one of these fake sites, that even though it is real postage, it was bought fraudulently.
More than likely, yes, that's how it ended up getting to where it was. So again, buyer beware.
Wow. And how hard is it to track down these bad actors that are making these fake postage stamps?
I mean, we're getting pretty good. We will partner with Customs and Border Protection when big shipments from overseas come in, if we do suspect that they are, in fact, um, containing any sort of counterfeit postage. But that's not the only kind. The other kind that I kind of want people to keep an eye out for is, labels. These are not the stamps. These are more like the Avery label type postage labels that you would get when you walk into a post office. People are selling those online too, and those mostly target small businesses, people who have side hustles selling things. Again, they're approached either online or somehow in these groups that somebody can ascertain some cheap US postage for them to help kind of keep their margins thin in their business. And again, a lot of times these are bad actors and they are sending this postage to these poor victims who then are being victimized twice because they're buying the bad postage initially, putting it on their things to induct into the mail, and then they're being told it was counterfeit. So there is, kind of a victimization of the people who buy this as well. And by the time we show up and let them know, a lot of times what I hear is, well, I bought it from, and it's a no-name person on the internet, and I have to tell them, I'm really sorry, but you were scammed, and you gave your money to the scammer who gave you counterfeit labels for your business. And so that happens as well. And I don't think people realize that again. But again, back to my original point, to buy postage from any other place but the post office, you run the risk of it being counterfeit.
Are there certain times of the year that this becomes more prevalent? Is it the holiday season like we just passed, or is it year round at this point?
It's pretty much year round. Obviously, we see a ramp up as the holidays because again, people are mailing, especially parcels, to loved ones and stuff. But again, these scams kind of they stay around all year long, unfortunately. So again, what you're doing and me being on here and trying to reach consumers and let them know that these scams exist is super important.
And how lucrative can this be for these bad actors? I mean, if they're getting multiple people buying $1,000 worth of stamps, it sounds like a pretty good for them, but a bad business model altogether. They're making money.
Right. And again, because their victims, don't really know who they are, it's quite a devious scheme because even if I get to talk to the victims themselves and I ask, who get, there's really no way there's sometimes a WhatsApp name or an email or a phone number, but these aren't people that these victims know. These are people that they're figuring, they're conversing with on the internet. And as soon as, they want to disappear, they very quickly do.
Are we talking about individuals here? Are these, networks of scammers working together to pull off these postage scams?
I mean, it's hard to tell. I think it's probably both. But it is quite hard to tell at this point.
Hmm. Okay, so when we come back, we're going to talk about crimes against postal workers. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. So let's talk about crimes against postal workers. What are some scenarios you have seen on the job?
Yeah, so I think a few years back, I think that most people were very shocked, and there was an uptick definitely nationwide on assaults on our letter carriers. So that was quite shocking to us and to our employees and to the general public. So that is one crime that, we have seen an uptick in generally everywhere. I'm happy to report that that has quieted down with some real good investigative work and some preventative efforts on our parts. So that's good. But mostly, I think what people don't understand is that, our carriers are on the street every day. I think they habituate to seeing them every day, but that they carry valuables, your valuables to and from, and that can make them targets sometimes.
And what are these bad actors usually after? I know we've talked about drugs in the mail. Are there any other things like that?
Yeah, so obviously, they could be looking for either valuables or goods or cash or narcotics in the mail. They could also be after our carrier's keys in order to access the collection boxes or other things. We've seen that. Um, you know, there's a variety of things that they could be looking for. And again, looking for those checks. So again, if they can't get them from the carrier and they can steal a key and then maybe access a blue box later to get what they're after, then that's their MO for doing what they do.
And when you think of some crimes that you've seen against some postal workers, are there any that stand out to you that came to you as shocking?
Yeah, I mean, again, I've done this job almost 19 years, and if up until a few years ago, carrier assaults were exceedingly rare. They still are exceedingly rare given how many employees we have, but we definitely saw an increase in, right after the COVID-19 pandemic, we definitely noticed a sharp increase in those types of crimes. And I think it was very shocking, not only to us, because those are our employees and they're beloved members of our community. But I think it really was shocking to the Americans as a whole, thinking, in an age of cybercrime, you know why are people resorting back to kind of old school tactics of assault to take things? I think that was interesting in a really terrible way for a lot of people to think about. Um, so yeah, it was a very shocking kind of time, and I'm glad that the trends are definitely going down.
And why do you think that after the pandemic or during the pandemic there was such a spike in crimes against postal workers?
Yeah, it was a strange phenomenon, and I think that given that most people were home, that that became kind of what they could do. People couldn't necessarily go out, and the mail became a source of, unfortunately, a lucrative business for would-be crooks. So again, what is old is new again. That was something that they could they felt like they could get away with. Obviously, that was not the case. Because my agency aggressively investigated these cases, and we brought a lot of those guys to justice. So again, I would warn any would-be thieves out there: if you are planning to hurt or assault one of our carriers, we will find you and bring you to justice.
And how can an assault on a postal worker really affect someone's neighborhood? Do you think of a postal carrier as a staple of the person that you see all the time that comes into your neighborhood, says hello? But how can that really have an impact on local neighbors?
Yeah, again, I think they're beloved members of our community. I think almost all of us love our mail carriers. We have know them. They again are in our neighborhoods day in and day out. We see their faces. They deliver our packages, they deliver our gifts and our important correspondence from our loved ones. And it was just a real shock on the psyche that, some of them were so brutally attacked, and it was really disheartening. But again, it makes our job at the Postal Inspection Service even more important. We really do take it very, very personally when one of our employees is injured. Many of us, myself included, are the children of postal workers. So, again, it's kind of a family affair, and we take those crimes very, very seriously.
And how do you work with local law enforcement if a crime is committed, whether it's mail theft or a crime against a postal worker?
Yeah, so again, our goal is to get the bad actors prosecuted. If we, for whatever reason, cannot get a federal conviction, we will attempt to get a state conviction. Again, back to these assaults. In some of these cases, the assault suspects were juveniles, and there is no mechanism in the federal court system to prosecute a juvenile for that crime. So we would rely and partner heavily with our state and local partners in order to get those juveniles prosecuted for the assaults. So that's exact one example of how we partner really well with them. But again, it's really a team sport, law enforcement, and again, like you said, these communities were rocked by either mail theft or a carrier, and so the locals want to get involved too because they police those communities, and they take it personally too because that's a member of their community.
And what type of penalties could these suspects face if they are caught and charged and convicted?
Yeah, I mean, for an assault of a carrier, it carries up to 25 years and fines. So these are steep consequences that you don't want to, become involved in. I really would urge any would-be, thief to think again. Um, we do not fool around when it comes to assaults, and we will prosecute you.
Is there any scenarios or scenes in your mind that, or cases that you can think of that really shocked you or surprised you? What's it like for you, boots on the ground, um, just in local communities, catching bad guys?
I mean, it's always, it's bittersweet. I'm glad that I can obviously go out there and help. It's bittersweet in the sense of most of the time when we get called out to something, it's not a good day, right? We're not necessarily interacting with people always, when they're having good days, and so that's hard, right? But I really do enjoy, being able to help. I really enjoy being able to prosecute, and get, evidence to prosecute suspects, and serve justice. I think a lot of us that started in this job, that's what we signed up to do, and hopefully we're able to do those things. I also, one thing I've loved about this job is, when we're out on the street, or our employees and your letter carriers or the mail handlers, or, you know, whoever at the post office, they know that we're there to protect them, and we do the best job we can to do that. It's a tall order. We have really a lot of employees. But again, we love our jobs, and we really love to, help, especially in that hour where it's not always the most fun time, but it's also very rewarding.
And for people who are watching this, what are some of your tips to making sure that they can keep their mail safe?
Yeah, again, just like I said earlier, really being cognizant about where your mail is sitting. If you need to mail something, especially if it has a check inside, really you need to go into a post office and deliver it there. If that is absolutely something you cannot do and you need to mail it in a blue box, just try to minimize the amount of time that it's sitting in there. There's a sticker on every blue box that'll tell you the collection times. To the best of your ability, try to put your mail in that box as close to collection as possible, not let it sit overnight, certainly not over like a long holiday weekend. Again, if you are receiving mail at home and you're going on vacation, you can get a USPS vacation hold. One free thing is also you can sign up for informed delivery, which is allowing you to see your mail incoming through your email. So you can sign up for that when you're looking for important things. So there's a variety of ways that you can keep your mail kind of out of thieves' hands, and we just want people to know about those options and utilize them.
All right, well, those are some great tips. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
We'll see you guys next time.